Hello, 8th graders. Today you're going to be doing lesson 16 in your workbooks, and you're working on figuring out the dimensions of cones. So this is going to be similar to what we did after we found the volume of cylinders, and then we worked on dimensions of cylinders. So for your first activity, you are given a bunch of equations here, and you have to decide what value, if any, would make the equation true. And you're looking for what values for these variables, height, radius, A, and B, would make the equation true. So go ahead and take a minute or two on your own, and then when you're done, talk together with your group, and then start the video. Go ahead. Okay, so in this activity, for the first one, H is going to be 81, and that's because 1/3 times 81 would get you 27. So if H is 81, and the next one, R would have to be 9, because 9 squared would get you 81, times 1/3 would be 27. The third one here, A needs to be 36, because 36 times 1/3 would get you 12, and then you still have pi on both sides. And then on the last one, B is going to be 6, because 6 squared would be 36, times 1/3 would be 12. So going on to the next activity, you're looking at the volume of this cone, and it gives you the formula for the volume of a cone right there. And it tells you that it has a height of 3 units and radius is just r. But it does tell you that the volume is 64 pi. So then it gives you this statement here, 64 pi equals 1/3 pi r squared times 3. And what they did there is they took that formula for the volume of the cone, substituted in 64 pi for V, and substituted in 3 for H. So from here, your job is going to be to figure out what is R. What does the radius of the cone need to be? So this is similar to what we did with cylinders last week. So go ahead, try this on your own for a couple minutes, and then work with your group to come to agreement on your answer, and then start the video again when you're ready. Go ahead. Okay, so looking at this cone and trying to figure out the radius, I've done some work over here on the right where I rewrote 64 pi equals 1/3 pi r squared times 3. And then in this next step, I just rearranged that and wrote 64 pi equals 1/3 times 3 times pi r squared. And I rearranged it that way because I can easily take 1/3 times 3. So in my next step here, 64 pi equals 1, because 1/3 times 3 is just 1, times pi r squared. And then I simplified that to just 64 pi equals pi r squared. And then going down to my next steps, I can divide both sides by pi. You might not have to do this if you can reason through what the radius is, but as one step you could do. And then I'm left with 64 equals r squared. Remember, this is just like an equation, and you're trying to get r by itself. And I know that 8 squared equals 64, so my radius needs to be 8. Okay, so that one works out that problem. Going on to the next activity you're doing, you're looking at a bunch of different cones now. You're given a table again and some different dimensions, and you have to fill in the rest of the table. I do want to look at a couple of these with you first. On your table, you're first going to do the first big calculation you need to do is the area of the base. Remember that is going to be a circle, which is pi r squared to find the area of a circle. Then the volume of a cone, and then I want you to write down the formula for the volume of a cone. Volume equals 1/3 pi r squared times H. Now this 1/3 part, you'll find as we work through here that you can take 1/3 times your height, or you can take 1/3 times the number that goes along with the area of the base. Either one of those is going to work, because in multiplication we can switch up the order. So let's just work through Let's see, if we number these, we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's work through number 1 here first. If the radius is 4, the diameter is going to be 8. If the radius is 4, the area of my base is going to be pi times 4 squared, so that's going to be 16 pi. We should be feeling comfortable with that by now. If the height is 3, I need to find the volume of my cone. Remember this, the only difference here is the 1/3 part. Well, I can take 1/3 times the height in this case. That's pretty easy. 1/3 times 3 is just 1 times the area of my base. Well, I just end up with 16 pi. And I'm going to write down again how we did that. 1/3 times 3, which was our height, times that pi r squared, which was 16 pi. And again, I just rearranged it to write the height here by my 1/3 because 1/3 of 3 is just 1. So this would all simplify to a volume of 16 pi. Okay, then I want to work through number 3. Number 3, they give you the area of the base as 36 pi. My radius then I know is going to be 6 because 6 squared is 36, and the diameter then is going to be 12. So now the height is 1/4. To find the volume, I'm going to take my 1/3 again, times, I need to multiply it by the area of the base and the height. I'm going to take 1/3 times 36 pi times 1/4 in that order. And this time it's because 1/3 times 36 is going to be a lot easier than 1/3 times 1/4. So 1/3 of 36, well, 36 divided by 3 is just 12. So then I'm left with 12 pi times 1/4. Well, 1/4 of 12 is 3. So my volume here is going to end up being 3 pi. And there we go. So again, when you're writing out your volume formula, remember that you can switch things around because it's all being multiplied, and we can do that in multiplication. So go ahead on your own, work on completing this table. When you're ready, talk with your group, come to agreement on things, help each other out, and then I'll show you the key for the table in a little bit. Go ahead. Okay, here's the key for that table. Go ahead and check that over, and if you have questions, ask your group, ask our guest teacher today, or save some questions, make a note, and we can look at it tomorrow. So go ahead and check those over. Okay, moving on to our next part of the lesson. You have 2 containers of popcorn here. One is shaped like a cone, one is shaped like a cylinder. They might look similar in dimensions here today, but do make note that their heights are different and their diameters down here are different. So just be careful of that as you work. But they also give you a price for each one of them. The cone is $6.75 and the cylinder is $6.25. Your job is to figure out which of these is the better deal. If you're going to the movie theater and these are your options, which one of these is the better deal? So go ahead, you might need a calculator on this one because it does say to use 3.14 as an approximation for pi, so that means multiplying it out. And then you might have to do some dividing in there too as a hint. So go ahead and use a calculator on this. Work with your group right away, talk through it, help each other out, and then start the video again when you're ready. Go ahead. All right, so looking at this problem, I'm trying to figure out which one of these is the better deal. Here I've shown my work. For the cone-shaped popcorn cup, the volume again would be 1/3 pi r squared times the height. And I filled in what I knew for the radius if the diameter is 12, the radius is 6. And I filled in what I knew for the height with 19. And then if I multiply that all out using 3.14 for pi, I would get a volume of 715.92 cubic centimeters. Over on the cylinder, again, starting with the formula and filling in what I know, 4 for the radius, 15 for the height, I multiply everything out using 3.14 for pi. I would get a volume of 753.6 cubic centimeters. And you might already see that, okay, they're selling less popcorn over here in the cone. That is less popcorn for more money. So you might already be able to reason out here that the cylinder is the better deal. But if you went further and did some dividing, you could take that volume, 715.92, divided by your $6.75. You would end up getting 106.07, and what that means is 106.07 cubic centimeters per dollar. So that's how much popcorn you're getting per dollar. If you do the same process for the cylinder, you would end up getting, or you take your volume, 753.6, divided by your price, $6.25, you would end up getting 120.58 cubic centimeters per dollar right here. So you're getting more popcorn per dollar with the cylinder. So the cylinder in this case is the better deal. And there you go. So again, our big goal today was to work with cones and find out missing dimensions with the cones if you're given, other information. So hope that helps, guys. Your homework is the lesson 16 practice problems, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.